We're live. All right, we are in here. This is the sequel. FD is back. We're beyond the culture. Turn your fucking TV off. We on YouTube.
What's really hood? Welcome back, FD.
Thank you for having me back. I'm happy to be here. I'm in the middle of multiple crucibles between work and life. And so this is actually a very appreciated and needed break to just talk hip hop and get into some intellectual discourse.
Yeah. Hells yeah. I want to hear about what you're doing on Tyler Perry. I want to hear about what you're building on Beyonce. I want to talk about the halftime show. Before we get into that, let's just touch on Clouds, J. Cole, how you feel about Cole right now, because I think you agree with me. I was arguing with Green and our brother James, and they were saying Cole is forever stained by leaving the battle. I'm like, no, and I think you agree with me.
Yeah, I don't know if stained, people always remember that he backed out. Yes, right? And will some people see that in negative light? Yes. Was that a good thing for him to do? Yes.
Yes.
Was it some of the realest shit? To me, that was one of the realest things I can remember happening in hip hop. For a dude with every reason to flex and be fake, sit with himself, say, what am I doing? And then risk clout and reputation to be true to himself as an artist and a man and say, look, y'all, my bad, I'm out.
Well, wait. You should and must include in the interpretation. He spoke to Kendrick, and Kendrick told him, "This is where I'm going. This is what I'm talking about."
He spoke to Schoolboy, supposedly.
Is that factual?
No, he spoke to Schoolboy.
No. The story is that Schoolboy hipped him, and he spoke to Kendrick. And Cole and Kendrick spoke, and after that, he was like, "Yeah, no, I don't want to be part of this." And I don't think there's any fear. I think there's a mature decision. You know what it's kind of like? I want you to go into more FD, but it's kind of like you see LeBron coming and you're in the lane and you're like, you know what? I can't stop this nigga. And I don't have enough health insurance to take this charge.
I don't want to be on the
I'm going to make a business decision and let him have this dunk and we're going to keep moving. And like Cole was like, I'm going to let you have your dunk and I'm going to keep moving.
So I will say, I don't know. I'll concede to Green that I don't know that for a fact, although I think that's plausible. But more than that, right? So not just the fact that I want to get out of the way of the train, I think we also forget how everyone felt the night before Not Like Us. And how, wow, it felt more like a tragic ending. You know what I'm saying? It felt more like...
You talking about Meet the Grams?
Yeah, Meet the Grams did not leave a good taste in most people's mouth. They were happy that it happened and that the battle was clearly over, but people were like, at what cost? You know what I'm saying? Like,
fam. Wait, hold on. Let's stop there right there. Because I just realized that this guy, how genius Kendrick is, because we all felt like that. And me who wanted the Meet the Grams moment, I was like, Euphoria is great. It's great, but it's like light and so cerebral. And I was like, I want you to murder this man. Then he murdered him. And I'm like, why'd you do this? We didn't need this.
Why'd you do this?
But not
like this. Not like us. Not like this.
You wanted a street banger, boys in the hood murder. You didn't want Dexter, where Trey is tapped to the fucking chair and he's surgically like, whoa, that was disgusting.
So no, but then he made us forget with Not Like Us. This guy's a genius. We all were like, hey, Not Like Us. They not like us. We just started bopping and forgot that he just murdered somebody 16 hours ago.
Right. And so that's even Drake has not focused on all the things he said in Meet the Grams and all the lawsuits and whatnot. It's only been Not Like Us. And so bringing it back to Cole, if I'm Cole when Meet the Gram hits, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm happy that I have nothing to do with this. Because this feels like it was not something I was supposed to be a part of. This wouldn't sit right with my soul. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think that was what, Cole, what was really like going through Cole's head, knowing, because I will stand on the hill. As much as I love Kendrick, and people I guess I give mixed signals because I'm very critical of Kendrick, even though he's my favorite rapper right now and probably since, I don't know, when it was written come out. My favorite rapper since 1995 when it was
94,
94, 95.
95,
Right. So he's on my
early
favorite
90s.
run for a rapper since that Nas run with it was written in Illmatic.
You're such a type, bro. I love it. You're such a type.
I
go from Nas to Cold Bastard there, like.
But Kendrick just seems kind of monstrous to me. He does not seem like a settled good thing. He seems like a force of chaos and evil that just happened to be pointed at a good target.
He's like
I'm just worried. Yeah, there you go. It's like the Hulk. And right now, Scarlet Witch is whispering in his ear. But like, if this nigga goes wild in another direction, I don't know if we're really prepared for the type of monster to be unleashed. Because I stand by the take I had that I think Kendrick planned this as a public assassination from jump, probably for years, and measured it out to a T. So, like, as much as I'm happy that he hit his target, I'm more like, I don't, not like this. So, but having Cole go.
I'm not afraid of Kendrick having that power you're talking about, that sort of monstrous power to be able to murder anyone, because he sees himself as like the Pope of hip hop, in that he is the police of the purity of hip hop. And that was part of the core of his argument in the beef. Like, I am pure hip hop and you're like 0% hip hop. So
that sounds like an anime villain to me, Tori. That sounds like at the end of the anime.
He's only going to attack you if he thinks that you are living foul as far as the principles of hip hop and the spirit of hip hop, right? So if you're living good, he's not going to bother you. Right?
Yeah, but the analogy he just said about an anime villain, since you don't watch anime, you don't know how on point that shit is. That he's this. Anime villains are like, I'm so powerful. I'm just looking for someone who is as powerful as me so I could destroy them. They're like, oh, I need the world to be at ease at all times. And if you're not in order, I will destroy you. The destroy part comes where the villainy comes from. It's like, no, I will destroy you. You need to be eradicated.
The fear is that, like, right now we're under the guise of a benevolent, leader.
Yeah.
Right? We're under the guidance of a benevolent leader in hip hop. That's great. And so, like, at what point does he turn into Sephiroth or like Skynet? There you go. Yeah. Skynet, Torre. You're familiar with Skynet and that's
Terminator, Skynet. You know that.
So on the low, is Kendrick the villain here, or the?
I've always said he's the villain. I've always said he's the villain.
I've said that as well.
He's always been the villain. We're just okay with it because he's doing what he's supposed to do. But he's not the hero.
Because he initiated and pre-planned the battle and premeditated the battle.
Everything he did is like he's freaking Dr. Doom. What are you talking about? He's a genius level villain.
It was good, but it was immoral.
It was immoral. See, wow, I don't think he thinks it's immoral. I think he thinks it's wrapped up.
Because he's an anime villain. That's the point, Tori. I'm going to send you some anime. I'm going to send you Code Geass. And I want you to, are you familiar with Code Geass, King Green?
No, I haven't watched that one.
Educate me. Okay.
No, I didn't watch that one.
Long story short, Code Geass stars a charismatic underdog figure who gains a supreme power, not supreme, but a very good power. That he's so smart, he's a master at chess. And he uses this power to essentially change the world one evil scheme at a time, to the point we're at the end of the show. Spoiler alert for Code Geass. I'm going to watch it. At the end of the show, he has his best friend murder him in public because he's become he schemed so well that he realizes he's going to tear apart the society if he's not taken off the board himself.
That sounds like a great anime. You ruined it for me.
It's amazing.
I'm gonna still watch it.
He has himself killed so that because he's too powerful to be in the society.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's crazy.
He recognizes the only way the society can function from the point, for all the things he's done, he realizes society can only function if he becomes the villain. And then he has his homeboy who's remained virtuous the whole time, be the one that kills him in public. And then he trusts his homeboy to take the society forward. So maybe that's Jid. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Jid's gonna come get in the beef with Kendrick.
That's hilarious. Yo, Jid, that
maybe
makes
it's
so much sense.
Maybe that's what's happening here.
No, let me get to a super chat because you just brought that up. In the super chat, the first one says, "Why and who should J. Cole battle?" From your perspective, FD. Then I'm gonna say my point. Then Toure, you go.
Unless Cole is, unless like that Cole Geass situation is about to happen, I don't want J. Cole to battle. I am more interested and appreciative of J. Cole's music in the last couple of years than I've been his entire career. I did like not the one everybody doesn't like, For Your Eyes Only. Like, I love that album. I listen to that one a lot, right? Everything else he's done to me is like, to me, I've always said J. Cole is if like Nas and Common had a disappointing baby. And so like everything else is like, this is pretty good. But like for me, who grew up on Nas and Common, it's not doing a lot for me. So like, you know, I'm not really interested. But the fall off, not the fall off. What do you have before the fall off? With
fall off. KOD? Was it KOD?
I didn't like KOD. It came after KOD. Or maybe it came before KOD.
Off season. No, fall off didn't come out.
Fall off didn't come out.
The
so
one
it might be
coming
off
out.
Season.
Off season,
yeah.
You're talking about.
So off season was cool. The mixtape was cool. All these little one moment songs are cool. They're pretty good. I'm annoyed by his poor attempts at wokeness. It's like uninformed wokeness. There's like bad trans bars. He's always got these bad trans bars. It's like, Cole, stop trying to make transness into a punchline. Yeah. It's not. It doesn't work. And it's not.
He's like, you're still a dude under there.
It's like Cole. That's not.
Why are you saying that?
That's not what you think you're doing. Stop it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But really, just his sincerity on what's the name of the song he just dropped?
Clouds.
Was it Clouds? On Clouds, on Port Antonio, on parts of the mixtape he just dropped. He has a sincerity about him that I don't get from most rappers that I do find appealing. I just wonder if the album is going to be as interesting as the sincerity has been. So if the album sounds like Port Antonio and Clouds, I'm gonna have a full 180 on Cole if he can leave the weird trans.
If he could do that, I'm hoping for that. I've been hoping for that 180 on his albums because an artist is not an artist to me until I like their album. Like I can't like you as an artist till I like an album. I like him as a technical tactician, all that. He's a master at rapping. Cole is a master, but an artist that I love Tyler, the Creator's music and his art because he's made amazing albums. Kendrick, I love it because of his amazing albums. Cole has not made, for me personally, that album that touched me. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like he has such the capability right now because he's doing something that no other rapper is doing.
Did you not love Jay Electronica before his album came out?
Jay Electronica dropped albums. You're talking about the blog era, right? They were dropping albums before they were mainstream albums.
So you say you're putting a piece of art, the same as the label
piece of art, any body of work. If you make a body of work that I love, it's over. That's me and you. I get you. You are an artist, and I get you. Jay Electronica,
Wale's
Eternal
mixtape
Sunshine.
About Nothing.
Yeah,
a good
great
example.
concept.
I don't know if he's ever really reached that particular peak in his like main studio albums.
Exactly,
because that was such a great mixtape.
I'm not really dying to see Cole battle anyone. I would kind of like to see like a development in the nature of battling. For perhaps Cole does something where he battles himself, where he is creatively talking to himself, calling out his flaws,
I like
and
that idea.
returning that. Or the devil angel within him, or the duality within him, talking back and forth. So it's a more higher conceptual, like internal conversation, argument with yourself sort of thing.
I thought you said you don't like speculation on albums. That was a beautiful speculation on what I would want from a Cole album.
And I think he's leaning into that. I feel some of that through some of his last couple of tracks.
But I would also like to see an era where battling is a little bit more like WWE in that like maybe artists or managers get together and like, it would be good if we battled you guys and like, great, let's do it. We know we're not serious. We're not going to hurt each other, but like we're going to hurt each other.
Hip hop not
and
being
like,
contrived though?
The level
yes.
of contrivity, though, the level of it,
Yes.
I'm like, it needs to be right. Like Kendrick and Drake were supposed to be that to us. We thought like, you guys aren't really gonna kill each other. We thought this was gonna be fun. Everyone thought that at first, and then it went,
imagine if what it would be like if like De La Soul had battled A Tribe Called Quest, and like we're all friends, we love each other, like we're brothers, but we're doing this to represent the way we talk in hip hop, and we battle in hip hop and don't get mad and hug it out and don't get mad at each other.
Q-tip
like
battling
hug after a fight.
Sounds ridiculous.
So like but we're playing with the convention of battling, because I mean, we had a lot of I'm better than you, you suck, and like great, you hate each other. I'm down with that, but also, can you do it in another way? So I'd be interested to see it develop in some way, even if it's a little bit more performative, or there's some rules to it, or we understand just the way we. I mean, you've made whole things about the greatness of pro wrestling.
Yeah. I think if you go back to the Control verse, that's what that kind of felt like for a little while. It was friendly phase when Kendrick called out all those people, and then you got verses from Joel Ortiz and B.O.B. and Lupe, and it wasn't beef. It was competition. It was sport. It was competition.
Yeah,
and that's dope. But the flip side though is, I think we as 30+ hip hop heads whose connection to the culture starts in the 80s and 90s are not the prime audience, who are drama vampires weaned on, at best, the blog era, at worst, hip hop Twitter and Reddit. You know what I'm saying? And like the way social media promotes rage and outrage content and reactionary dispositions, I don't know if even if a battle remained a friendly fade, the surrounding social media culture would force it into something more negative. Yeah, that they would kind of lose we would have to do so much house cleaning before we could be ready for something like that.
It would have to be so constructed, like you said. It'd have to be so constructed in the same way that actual battling is. Smack DVDs. It would have to be just like that. It'd be that constructed, so we know the realm that we're in, and we could be like, oh, this actually, Black Boy Max, who's a streamer, who's doing something great that I enjoy. Black Boy Max is getting current artists like 42 Doug, DaBaby, and having them play their songs against each other in like a versus battle on live streams. I watched another one just the other day. DaBaby played a crazy song, and I was like, and then after they pick, okay, you won this battle, and these are like artists with platinum plaques doing songs versus with each other, and so that's actually kind of happened. I just realized that right now. And that's beautiful. And I think that comes from the idea of like that Drake and Kendrick shit went too far. Let's get back to like being competitive, but here's a platform for it. And that's happening with the youth right now on live stream. So I just remember.
So let me shift you a little bit. I want to hear your thoughts on the halftime show.
Yeah. And this can also transition to a couple of things you talked about, because I'm working on a project about Beyonce of all people. And in the beginnings of that project, while I was kind of like writing and planning it out, Kendrick had his halftime show. And it was an interesting compare and contrast, not just for the shows, but also the reactions, both to Beyonce's show last December, Kendrick's Super Bowl show, and probably the beginnings of this critique was Beyonce's Super Bowl show like in 2014 when she dressed up as like the Black Panthers, right?
Right.
And so like that in the political space that I tend to occupy, that show is seen as one of the kind of like the worst moments of like counterintelligent, like kind of counterintelligent, but like co-option of radical political imagery. And so like
of radical political imagery.
Yes.
Are you serious? Go ahead.
Yes, dead serious. But let me come back there in a second. And so what Kendrick did to me was good. I was happy that Kendrick did not try to go too much further than he did, because it would have felt similar to that Beyonce Black Panther moment, where it's like you're taking figures in this particular historical element and you're applying it to something that if those people knew what it was being applied to, they would be really, really angry. And so Kendrick saying, well, I'm just going to reappropriate the flag, throw some interesting visual elements. I like the Uncle Sam part. That was probably my favorite part. And the I think it was Man at the Garden with the dudes all in the white tees and jeans. Yeah. So I like a lot of that stuff, but I like that it didn't seem like Kendrick was trying too hard to be really political, even though you might feel like we want a political statement in the moment. To me, that political statement being made at the Super Bowl, like with the NFL, and I'm a football junkie, right? But the NFL is a vessel for like military propaganda, among many other things. Mm-hmm. They're not the place where you like jump out and say, we're going to do like this big protest statement, or maybe it is, but
yeah, wouldn't it make sense to do it there if that is a vessel for that?
It would,
especially in the context of the game. This is the great American game, which is meta commentary, right? It's like, look, I'm playing the game just like you're playing the game. That's what he's saying with that. We are all playing this game, and we're playing this football game that everybody loves, and I'm being told that I should do it this way, but I want to do it this other way. And he's simultaneously doing both at the same time. And so it's a commentary on how we are trapped in this shit.
Yeah. And I like that. I like that. I guess for me, there were some people to the left of me. Well, some people to the left of me wanted more, or they felt angry that he left it at that point, that he didn't become more demonstrative. Versus like, who's the last person to really, like what he did at the Grammys a couple of years ago, he just straight up dressed like a slave. You know what I'm saying? Like,
prisoner.
Was that the Grammys?
But slave. Same thing,
prisoner.
Yeah. Prisoner, I'm sorry. But you get my point. Like that was much more, people were looking for that. They wanted to hear him perform all right. And I love that too, but I've also just become, there's something called, shout out to my boy, Nicholas Nameless. I talked about that in my video. There's something called the jester's privilege, where what we end up doing sometimes is allowing, being lulled to sleep by showy moments of protests and resistance that don't actually have meaningful connectivity to actual change. And the jesters themselves are a perfect example of that, because the jester back in the day was the only person that could talk shit to the king in his face, right? But the point of the jester was to actually make the king look good by making them look like they had a sense of humor about themselves and make them look like they're benevolent. But at the end of the day, the jester had no power. The king still had all the power. And the king, everybody could laugh with the king at the jester, and then the king could order a bunch of people to die as soon as the jester left. You know what I'm saying? And, the example my boy Nicholas Nameless used was the Barbie movie a little while ago. The Barbie movie critiqued Barbie and consumerism or whatever, but it was still made by Mattel. At the end of the day, it was a celebration of Barbie. And Barbie was like, yeah, there's some stuff there, but also like, aren't we great? And you left the theater being like, yeah, Barbie is great.
But the critique is ultimately that Kendrick is not Huey Newton, but he didn't say he's Huey Newton, and there would be no opportunity for him to be Huey Newton at the Super Bowl. He is at the Super Bowl maybe calling up Huey Newton or Frantz Fanon or whoever, when you could have gotten Harry Styles. You could have gotten a complete nothing, no conversation about politics whatsoever. This person is at least in a nuanced way pointing to the political situation that we are all in and leaving it to you to be like, I can explore more about this. I can say that being political is cool. I can say that having a political spine to your work makes more sense as a Black person in this modern world.
I can challenge the status quo instead of
having no political conversation whatsoever. And it's like, well, he didn't actually complete the revolution at the Super Bowl. Like, what the fuck? He had a Black-centric conversation about what it is to be a Black person in America in front of 1 billion people.
Revolution over. Game over.
And there is there is a time for political art, and political art doesn't have to be activism in and of itself. It can support activism.
Thank you.
And so one, that is my take overall. I want to be clear.
Okay.
In general,
that chat's trying to fire you up right now.
It's fine. It's fine. You know, I can take the heat. In general, that's pretty much where I stand. That I would prefer not to have something go harder than it needs to be, considering the position it's in. But I also have talked to people that basically say, if you're not going to truly make the stand, to make the challenge to the system in the moment, then you need to leave the aesthetics and the imagery and the name dropping of truly radical people to others who are willing to do that. Because when you do that, you water down what they actually did. So a perfect example of this, what's funny to me is that people are not critiquing Kendrick as much as they did Beyonce, which speaks to some latent misogyny, et cetera, et cetera. But the real culprit in all of this is Jay-Z, who ran into the Super Bowl halftime show sponsorship game, whatever you want to call it, while people were still kneeling at the football game.
Sure.
And said out loud, "We passed kneeling," et cetera, et cetera. I lost train of thought.
Jay-Z is the real culprit here.
Well, I don't want to say the real culprit, but I want to tease Jay-Z out kind of as an example of what people are getting at. So Jay-Z on numerous occasions has talked about like Fred Hampton, you know what I'm saying, and people like that who would have hated Jay-Z. just keeping it a buck. Fred Hampton would not have been cool with Jay-Z at all. And so what happens is some of these people, going back to the Black Panthers, the Black Panthers were an explicitly communist organization. They were anti-capitalism, anti-Black capitalism, anti-Black bourgeoisie, anti-empire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. So when you start, and most people don't know this, like the people, they know what the Panthers look like. They know that aesthetic, they know that energy, but they don't know what they were really about. And that is happening partially because we figured out a way through our modern media apparatus to tell the history of certain elements of Black political history without giving you specifics, without telling you the really important things that might disrupt the status quo of what we're getting into. And so the people I'm speaking to look at a Kendrick right now. I don't necessarily agree, but I'm just giving you their stance. They look at any type of half-measure political statement, and they say what you're doing is contributing to that watered-down misrepresentation of a history. Versus a perfect example, Lupe Fiasco at Obama's inauguration on repeat. Gaza Strip was getting bombed, Obama didn't say shit. Gaza Strip was getting bombed, Obama didn't say shit. And that man's career has never been the same. And so that's what they're kind of getting at.
One thing with the Jay-Z thing that you point out, there has always been a tension within Black activism between outside agitation and inside work. And the notion that you need to have both. And you need to be in the streets pressuring the government or these corporations, but you also need to be inside of them to make the final push. You can get them to take the issue seriously, but you can't get real change unless people are inside. But then sometimes we get people inside and they act more selfishly than communally. And Jay-Z's intro to the NFL is presented as a communal thing. I will represent us inside of the NFL. Colin, I got it from here. The time for kneeling is over. But actually, it's just Jay-Z being elevated to put what he thinks on the halftime show, which is a nothing burger compared to politically what Colin Kaepernick was trying to do with his movement.
Right. What he sacrificed. He was 29. He had 4 or 5 years left of his career. You know what I'm saying? And so, but that conversation of inside versus outside is really what this upcoming video about Beyonce is going to be about, because I think we're at a newish or unique time right now in Black political thought, where for the first time, probably in 50, 60 years since the 60s, the Black Power movement, the Civil Rights movement, where the truly radical voice, Black radical voice, has reemerged on the scene, and more moderate or centrist or like gradual minded folks are suddenly having to share space. This podcast is an example of that, right? Like, I'm sure there's things on my channel that y'all were like, like, I don't know if I agree with all of that. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa.
I fuck with most of your channel.
well, yeah, I appreciate that. But the fact that we're having this conversation speaks to a new paradigm. Whereas maybe 10 years ago, I'm never able to do this. I might go to y'all to Charlemagne one day. You know what I'm saying? Charlemagne had one of my homegirls, Olay, a radical leftist, anti-police person, cursed the fuck out of the mayor of New York on the Breakfast Club a couple months ago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not something that happened in Black media for a long time. We had sprinkles of it. We had kind of like hand wave, kind of fake versions of it. But it hasn't been happening.
That's performative as well, though? Because some people also come back to that, because there's even the other side. Like, I'm for lack of a better term, but you understand it. There's also the Hotep side of that blackness.
Coming soon.
That Hotep side of that blackness
video coming next week, maybe. Go ahead.
And they're like, all y'all on some bullshit, and we're talking about murder, death, kill. Coupe tete boule kai for any Haitian that knows what that means. So, and I'm referring to the Haitian Revolution and the concept of that. So, is it also these different types of viewpoints? Is that helpful? Is that actual movements, or is it just good because something's stirring?
A little bit of both. So, there's more movement happening. Like, I can't remember where I got this from, but there's been more union movement in the last like 5-6 years than in the last 30 years, right? We saw college kids hit the streets last fall, protesting what's happening in Palestine, and then we also have conversations happening, where, because here's the thing I think is undeniable, and I think everybody fucks with. Everybody's looking at what's happening right now, specifically right now, and is like, this is some bullshit. This cannot continue, right? And so there was people saying that before Trump got in office, with maybe different levels of people paying attention. But at the moment, everybody is on board. And so me personally, and this is sometimes gets me in conflict with those to my, I just point actually to my left. This sometimes brings me in conflict with those to my left. I'm constantly in conflict with those to my right. But I'm recognizing, specifically among Black people, that at the end of the day, we know we're all sitting at the same table. And you may want a few more spoils of empire, and you may have more faith in the police as an institution, and you may not want to see the system crumble. I don't want to see the system crumble because I live here, right? I'm not looking to join no renegade force where I have to wean my kids under wartime. Like, I don't want nothing like that. But I think everybody is. It may be reality, but I'm not gonna put that out to too much, especially here on this Google platform. Non-violent.
Super non-violent.
But we are having an evolution of conversations, because I think a lot of Black folks have looked to the political reality since Obama and said, hey, this ain't quite working, especially like millennials, who came of age under Clinton, who were so happy to vote for Obama and came out of Obama like, did we actually get what we thought we were getting out of this? And in the last 8-12 years or whatever, the answer is obviously no, or better yet, even if we did, it's easily reversed.
And people are still in love with Obama. And that's the thing that gets me. People be like, I love Obama. I'm like, you love him? I said this on the last episode. What do you love about Obama. The fact that he's cool, because I like cool people too, and people who are
He is cool.
charismatic and chill. I love that. But I'm saying, like, but what do we love about what he did? What do we love about what he did? Nothing. I'm sorry.
He made us feel good, especially in the moment. He made us feel a way that we didn't even think was possible.
Which is great.
Which is
great, but do we love it so much that we feel like we have to fight to get that feeling back? It doesn't seem like we want to fight to get that feeling back. It feels like we're just like, oh, we had that.
I think there's a reasonable difference between loving that particular man or loving a certain politician and then a conversation about what they do. And we can be critical of what they do and don't do, and also still, if the politician can stoke that sort of love through their sense of charisma, through their personality, through their history and who they are. And Obama is a unique individual over the last several decades, along with Bill Clinton, along with Ronald Reagan, who is able to stoke, and Trump is able to stoke a certain love from people who like him more than the conversation about what they're doing. And most politicians, 99% of politicians, are not able to create that. And you can win the presidency without creating that. But there is a very real it factor in certain politicians that makes people love them. I would love to hang out with Obama. I would love to sit and talk with, with him and someone like Bill Clinton, and like people that you grew up like loving more than just wanting them intellectually. There's something to be said for the politician who can get out of your head and into your heart, because that's ultimately where a lot of people are making their decision.
There's a skill set there.
Yeah, so I would argue, especially bringing it back to Kendrick and our luminary like artists, right? That is their God-given gift, is that they're able to craft images and messages and personas that penetrate, especially in today's climate, like penetrate our imagination, penetrate our spirit. They dig into us. And so that's intimate. That's an intimate sense of trust. And the argument is, if I am under the illusion that what you're presenting to me is revolutionary, is going to be system changing, is going to be paradigm shifting, and it's not, then you're doing me a disservice by coming into my heart like that. What I would prefer is if you just kept it, you kept it 100, you kept it light, you kept it fun. You know what I'm saying? You can still be deep, you can still have like a lot of meaning, but like,
should there be no political art? Like, you seem to want all political art to be to have political weight rather than just be political conversation or signaling. I mean, there's political art in all sorts of genres. We can't just say, if you don't make change, if you're not Huey Newton, then we don't care about you.
I think there's a difference between anti-capitalism song brought to you by Starbucks, and then, like, if you buy it at the Starbucks counter and it's a song about anti-capitalism, that's a different thing than, hey, I'm an artist and yeah, I make money off my art, or I'm surviving with this world and I'm talking about these things. There's a difference between those things. Yeah. And I could see the point of view. I wouldn't put Kendrick in that space because he didn't give us anti-capitalism in a wrapped up in a Starbucks package. So he didn't do that.
So he didn't. But my fear, and I haven't fully examined this particular aspect of it, my fear is that some people came away from that Super Bowl show thinking that maybe he did. You know what I'm saying? Thinking that maybe he did something more revolutionary or radical than he actually did, because of our love for Kendrick, of our desire to have to kind of put him in that place of like this. Even as he consistently says, I'm not your savior, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Like, people have a desire for that. People need that, especially right now. And they want that more than they actually want the revolution, which is why I appreciate the fact that he did a half measure, and that because it forces people to take the catharsis they wanted from a Kendrick show and hopefully put that back into the streets, back into local work, back to community, back into organizing. You know what I'm saying? And I think
I agree with that last statement.
So what's your problem with Beyonce's halftime show?
Again, going back to the Black Panther stuff. And this is at a time, like at that time, I didn't know the full history of the Panthers, or not very well. Like, let's think about all the times Panthers have emerged in our modern media. We just had a movie a couple of years ago, Judas and the Black Messiah. There was a movie with Kadeem Hardison way back in the 90s. There's so many guest appearances in a million different movies and TV shows.
Hold it. But part of that, what you're talking about, is personal, right? Because like the Black Panther mixtape was a powerful documentary that was like big in my world. That was like, that was like a very clear, real conversation about them. The work of Tupac is constantly like referencing and talking about them. You know, there's Elaine Brown's whole rise to greater fame. She had fame in the 70s as the head of the Panthers, but in the 90s, she became bigger when her memoir came out, and we started her whole, like, I mean, we've been talking about the Panthers as a nation in all sorts of ways, and the information is completely there.
But the thing, and that's what I disagree with. And like, it's funny, I just finished watching the mixtape this week because for a video I'm doing on hoteps, and I feel like I got like 30-40 minutes in before anybody mentioned anti-capitalism or socialism or communism. Like, it was a good, like, they were getting to some real shit, don't get me wrong. It wasn't fully pulling punches, but the fact that Fred Hampton read Mao is something that does not get, it is not a part of his public identity right now. The fact that Du Bois was a socialist and John Lewis was a socialist, and all these folks were like, they weren't just like, they didn't maybe have the same understanding of the left that we have today because the left existed differently at the time, but they were much more clear and explicit with complete alteration and changing of the system than our media apparatus has shown to us. One of the videos I'm most proud of talks about the fact that the way that Martin Luther King is taught to the public is that he did a bunch of stuff. He marched on Washington. He did the I Have a Dream speech, and then he died the next day after freeing the slaves. And nobody talks about the fact that King lived another 3-4 years, and like was on his way back to Washington, talking about major wealth redistribution, talking about reparations, talking about all these things that people don't. That is when we talk about do the knowledge. That's the stuff that's genuinely being hidden from the public discourse.
And that's why he got killed, really, is the money. And that's when you start messing with people's money, like in that way, the government's money, the government's like, what's popping? No, let's get this guy out of here. But I see, that's your issue with Beyonce, though. I want to see like your issue with Beyonce.
With Beyonce specifically, that was just, the Beyonce situation is more low-hanging fruit. The reason why I'm doing the video about her, because I honestly think that she gets more heat than she deserves, if that makes sense. As a like, you can as an emblematic of this particular problem in Black politics and Black art is that people often choose Beyonce as their vector for do you have good politics or bad politics, is how you feel about Beyonce's feminism and her activist imagery, etc. Because Beyonce is very, very skilled and good at evoking all this imagery that relates to these histories and politics and knowledge bases. Beyonce helped create the pop feminism wave in the 2010s. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember this vividly. And I also remember my wife, who was a relatively well-read feminist, being really not feeling the fact that feminism was going from being this like radical space of study to something Beyonce put on the screen while she performed Flawless. It changes what feminism is fundamentally and opens it up to co-option in a way.
How does Beyonce talking about, because I mean, for one thing, feminism is difficult for women in that a lot of women don't embrace feminism. They embrace feminist principles, but they resist calling themselves feminists because there's a lot of, it's a loaded term for a lot of women, right? So like, for us to be anti-racist, we're like, yes, of course. But for women, it's much more loaded. So just the one example of Beyonce being like, I am unadulterated feminist. It is cool to be a feminist. It is not anti-male to be a feminist. That is an important part of the message of normalizing feminism.
it's useful, but then the question becomes, well, what did Beyonce mean by feminists, especially back then? And so what you notice during that pop feminism wave of the 2010s, because it wasn't just, again, pointing out some of the hypocrisy and misogyny, it wasn't just Beyonce, it was Lady Gaga, it was Katy Perry, it was Taylor Swift, it was like, and then also eventually Hillary Clinton, right? So there was this whole pop feminism wave. And the pop feminism wave, for the most part, defined feminism as women having the power that men have. And it's like, okay, what women and what power? And when you analyze it, and I can bring up, I can throw you some videos and papers. What was happening is people are saying we need more women in positions of power. And then once that happens, then all women will be free and there'll be more equality, yada, yada, yada. And what you found is that the women that got in those positions of power just behaved like men. And so Beyonce in particular, while she was doing this pop feminism wave, was starting, what was the House of Darion?
Yeah.
Was that
yeah.
And so that was being done on what's the term we use? I want to say slave labor. What's the term? In sweatshops. You know what I'm saying? What's her name? Who I have, I guess, a little more respect for because she's never presented herself as a feminist, but Rihanna.
So Beyonce can't wear Black Panther gear at the Super Bowl because she's a hyper capitalist.
Technically, it goes against the Black Panther ideals if you are a hyper capitalist. So that makes sense. But what he's trying to say is that what happened and what the government successfully did with all of Black movements is destroy the ideology so they don't live within the psyche of the Black community, correct? So if you are projecting the imagery without the ideology, it can be problematic, but you could also say, this is the FD, if you project the imagery, you can be challenging someone to try to find out the ideology, which is, I think, what Kendrick and Beyonce did. It's like, if I see Black Panthers, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, Black Panthers, whatever. And I'm a young Black kid, and I'm a young Black girl I'm gonna be like, what is the Black Panthers? Now I'm gonna read about it, and now I know about it, and maybe I become No Name. Maybe No Name is No Name because of Beyonce's halftime show. So that's why I can't look at an artist, a revolutionary artist, and have a political standard for a revolutionary artist because they're not an actual revolutionary.
And so so that's kind of where I'm landing as well. What I think really, the thesis I think I'm going to come to for this video that I haven't written yet is that we need to spend a little less time, not less time, so to speak. We need to ramp up our political media critique so that as these artists present these imperfect, sometimes compromised images of these politics, of this radical ideology, and we have those people that start doing their Googles, they're going to find the real shit. Because right now the problem, and we need, it would be nice if those artists did put in more effort to consistently spotlight and highlight the realest shit that they're maybe not willing to do because they're on the level of a Kendrick. You know what I'm saying? Can we get a Kendrick song featuring a No Name? You know what I mean? Like it's little stuff like that where, okay, we recognize you're in a compromised position. And I'm speaking to this myself. You know what I'm saying? Even though I come off extremely radical, like in certain spaces, I am putting in a lot of effort in a lot of situations to say, all right, who is not going to hit a million? Whose videos that can't hit 1 million views can I platform on my platform to bring attention to things that I cannot or am unwilling to bring attention to? And so, really, I think the big thing is to get us
to
get us from the celebrity worship of it all is to say that everybody needs to do their job. And at a minimum, your job is not to put in too much effort to defend and dissuade from valid critique of our favorite celebrities and stars. One of my homeboys that I talked to for this video, Irby Revelist, shout out to Irby Revelist, huge Beyonce stan, 10 Beyonce videos on YouTube. But he was ready to break it down with me on this video about Beyonce's hypercapitalism. You know what I'm saying? And he gets hell from the Beehive for doing that, even as a huge fan. And that's what I think I think at least that's the next step in this game is, okay, we have the Beyoncés and the Kendricks and people at this top of the food chain presenting you this imagery. Now we also need people under them pointing out the things they left out, whether on purpose or on accident, or pointing out how they got us fucked up. You know, Jay-Z quoting Fred Hampton saying capitalist is the new N-word. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is what I think is really the game to start now that the game is over. And again, bringing it full circle.
Capitalist is the new N-word is so crazy of a statement. That's so stupid.
Wild. It was a
that
wild
is the most
moment.
wildest statement ever. Capitalist is the new N-word. I know where he's trying to take it because he's talking about from the establishment looking at him, trying to dilute and get rid of the hyper-capitalists in their game. It's like, you guys got into the club and we don't want you in the club. And saying that you're a capitalist is a way to make people against you. I get that that's where he's coming from, but that's still stupid. Like, it's still dumb. You can't say that. Capitalist is the new N-word.
Nothing is like the N-word. And if you can't say what the N-word is, then the other thing is not like it.
Not like it. Exactly. We have super chats that have been waiting. The
F-word is like the N-word, but like,
go ahead, Greed. The R-word, the F-word.
So before we get to the super chat, just to see entice for the future, because I think this Beyonce joint's probably going to be April, May.
Okay.
And then to me, the ultimate person to critique for this is one Tyler Perry. He is a perfect congealment of, like, there's something extremely aspirational about what he did, because every other black billionaire got their billion from contracts with white folks. Every single last one. Mm-hmm. Tyler got that out the mud, and out the mud, I mean us.
Yep.
He said, y'all niggas like this, I'm going to do that. And
keep
then
feeding you and feeding
I'm going
you.
to keep feeding you. And so, but on the flip side is all this other stuff that I don't want to get to just yet, where it's like, okay, the ultimate critique of that issue is really his career and where he's positioned in Hollywood right now. So
I want to go through Tyler Perry. I wanted to hear the super chat, and then I want to do one more bit around Beyonce ideology, but read the super chat.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot, so I feel like we'll break them up. So what do you guys think Kendrick's next album will be? GNX Deluxe or a whole new project? Hopefully GNX Deluxe and a new project. That's what I say.
It's got to be GNX Deluxe. Where is this Body song? God damn it. I've been listening to a minute snippet for like 3-4 months now. Kendrick, drop the song.
Shit. Like, you guys waiting. Another chat real quick. Nah, it's about how Cole moved. He left that lame diss up for a week to maximize album sales. Then I would have won ish afterwards, side eye forever. I'm with him. As an MC, me and James, we don't like it because we both rap. All right. So we wouldn't have done that. So as an MC, we're like, that's lame. But you are still a god MC and we respect you.
Did he say that?
He implied it with a metaphor. He didn't say that in plain English. He said, just because the gun didn't shoot, it's still deadly. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Like, we don't need to hear. Just talk about, like you said, just be introspective. Like Torre said, have a battle with yourself. You're still a god MC. Just do that without the battle shit.
You have another super chat you would like to read? Get off your anti-Cole soapbox, please. Leave that poor boy alone.
I think Kendrick is more of an anti-hero. There's a lot of people said he was more of an anti-hero. Is anime, the villain is proactive and the hero is reactive. So we usually see the superior tactician as the bad guy. My take, Kendrick is a bodhisattva? Some anime shit that I don't know. He stopped on his way to enlightenment to help others to find path. He stopped on his way to enlightenment to help others to find the path. Okay, cool. We'll get more to the super chats because Tori wants to move on.
I want to see how your Beyonce ideology fits into what we saw with Cowboy Carter, which is ultimately a revenge album for how she was treated in the country music space, specifically at the CMT, and to say, I too am part of country. I too am part of Americana. Like, this is my authentic world as well. And took her black fans who probably don't usually listen to country music for a lot of reasons, because a lot of the associations that go with it are very creepy and lynchy to us. So we're like, I'm good with that shit. And yet she took us there, and it was, for the most part, kind of a beautiful trip, and very enlightening, I thought, in a lot of ways, in terms of like bringing the Black country past and present into the conversation. Is this another example of her selling out?
No. I didn't like Cowboy Carter as an album too tough, just because I don't really fuck with country too much. And I did think,
but it's not really a country album.
It's not really, but it's too close for my personal taste. It's too close. Just the sounds that come out of country aesthetics don't appeal to my ears. It's really bottom line. And I also felt like maybe so I want to preface this. So like my overall critique is that anybody that complains about, I thought the complaint about her Cowboy Carter performance and the Cowboy Carter album as co-option are kind of shallow. And it's just kind of like, it's a country album. Like, it's doing the country music things, whatever. I did think that it was beneath Beyonce in a way to pander to that community. Like, you're Beyonce. Like, fuck them people. You know what I'm saying?
She's not pandering to them. This is a middle finger to them.
I don't know, because it had Jelly Roll and Miley Cyrus and Jolene, and so it kind of like took all. It was like, see how all these people fuck with me. It's kind of like the flip. So let's flip the script, and Taylor Swift makes an R&B album featuring Kendrick and Future. You know what I'm saying? Like, it feels pandering.
But you know, it's
not the same. Obviously not the same.
Because Taylor is not saying, I am ultimately part of Black culture to you guys. Like, if Taylor was actually Black and she'd been pretending to be white and pop, and no, but Beyonce is Houston, Texas. This is part of her youth, and this is a favorite conversation for her to
Swift and make it Tori Kelly. You know what I'm saying? Make it one of the hot biracial. Well, she's a white passing Black singer that if I didn't tell you she was half Black, you wouldn't know. Or Mariah Carey. You know what I'm saying? Mariah Carey's always made pop music, and like, imagine if she said, "All right, now here's my new R&B album featuring Patti LaBelle, Future, Drake."
Produced by Jermaine Dupri, like Emancipation.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I don't know. That's not a good example.
Well,
Mariah.
That's my personal opinion, which I don't. That's not a take I'm gonna die on just yet, because I haven't done enough work to develop it. But I will say that what I saw from her halftime show a couple of months ago was this announcement that we are a part of this Americana ideology and imagery. And there was a lot of hoopla calling it propaganda. And I don't know if that quite works for Beyonce, because like American propaganda does not include Black people. Now, is there something happening where we have a push for Black people to embrace American empire, right? And like be pro-American empire because we feel like we benefit from empire. I'm seeing something on Twitter. People are talking about Black neighborhoods are so much better during segregation. It's like, what the fuck are y'all talking about? Have y'all seen that?
Insane.
Yeah,
Insane.
I've seen that. Yeah. Trevor Noah said that about he's like, was integration
that's
the thing? But that's that's also a whole, like, I hate to just frame them all as Hotep, but that's also a Hotep concept that's been running through the Black community for decades of like, yo, we were in a better position when we were doing our own things with each other.
Right.
Yeah. Which statistically, that's a real ideal. Like, statistically, there's things and places where Black people were doing better as a community back in those times. But there's so many factors to take into that, not just integration. You know what I'm saying? Right. Because and I like being able to eat everywhere I want to eat. You know what I'm saying? But nigga, like, if I want, I like going to
I like when the police show up. I get nervous, but I just get like alert. I don't have fear because I know these niggas gonna jump out. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a different level of fear of police violence and white violence that happened during segregation.
I don't know about you.
Well, I still got fear, but it's not like literally the police was pulling up and whipping niggas' asses. Daily
in front of everybody, and we're talking about public lynchings.
You're talking about the fear when the beast arrives, but there was an inherent and constant humiliation, debasement, dehumanization, and debilitating fear of the other at all times. And it wasn't just the beast, the pigs who could come get you. Like any white person could get you, and the system would stand them up. So we're talking about you walk down the street and you bow your head so as not to be seen staring at them. Like it wasn't just like we're just having these poppin' chocolate cities in the corner and they're doing their thing over here. Like, no, like,
well, let's be fair to Trevor Noah that let's be fair to Trevor Noah that he did more of a thought experiment in saying, let's take the like racist shit away and just talk about that if black people were just focused on each other and doing their own things and going to their own doctors, that's the thought that he was doing, that thought experiment. But we know that the reality is that within that thought experiment, it's just a fallacy, because you can't like, how do you do that?
You can't erase racism and oppression from segregation. Like,
but I just wanted to give, in fairness, make sure that people know that he
and so to bring it back to Beyonce, I don't think that's what Beyonce was doing with her performance and with Cowboy Carter. It speaks a little bit of defiance to me. I am not a fan so much of like the whole reclaiming the flag concept, but I get it, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? I get how that resonates, and there's probably some use to it that, you know, doesn't require my approval if it gets the people going, et cetera, et cetera. And so like, it gets back to my point that Beyonce is kind of this like hyper-focused vector for these opposing political views, when really it's a spectrum of that happening across Black art. You know, I just saw the Captain America movie a couple of weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? And I can tell that they rewrote. I had fun watching a movie. Does that
should I spend money on it, or should I wait for Disney Plus? That's my question.
I don't even know what that means.
I'm a Marvel fan.
So if you're a Marvel fan, I will go see it. It's probably the most decent Marvel movie in a minute. Good action scenes.
That's not saying much.
I mean, it's not saying much, but I enjoyed a lot of the spectacle. I'm also a Marvel fan, so like I'm easy to please if you show me the things, right?
Are we in Act 4 of the MCU or 5?
It might be 5. I think they just ended 4 prematurely.
Yeah.
Phase 4 was like, was all the stuff people didn't like. And they were like, all right, that's over.
And it's funny because that Captain America movie that you're talking about kind of relates to the idea of like that blackness within the American system, and that imagery between the flag and a black face holding up that flag.
And so you would think, right? But just my media analysis mind, I can tell that they rewrote chunks of that out. Because there's like conversations that he has with other people, specifically other minorities, and like one or two white people that speak to that being a major theme of the movie. But on the grand scheme, the movie itself doesn't really engage with that issue very much. You know what I'm saying? And so like that reclaiming, like, where do Black people fit in Americana, is a conversation. I feel like I'm not educated enough to give a super strong take where I'm like, quote me on this one, y'all, American flag. But I will just say that it has a lot of room for fuckery. And it can go left, because in that same conversation are the hoteps, are the MAGA niggas, are a lot of people, and they're all kind of pointing at the same thing and claiming it. And I don't know if anybody has done the best job of differentiating what's really being said yet.
So you've been critical about certain people not being political enough. Let's talk about Tyler Perry. You're making a big video about Tyler Perry.
Against my wife's wishes, by the way.
Oh, she loved Tyler Perry, huh?
No,
she's a fan.
She just doesn't want. No, she's not a fan at all. She just feels like there's kind of like, well, I don't know if we want. Did we talk about this pre? Some of the stuff that happened pre-recording. I don't want to get into things that we don't want to put out in public.
Like, I don't know what you're even talking about.
I don't know what
Okay, well,
the thing about Green. No, you can't tell. You can't tell him that. No. He needs to keep that secret.
Think about Green.
I'm an open book, man.
So I'm in Atlanta, right? And there are opportunities coming my way at this point. Like I've had a really good year. I'm working on a documentary. I just created a shout out to Nebula. I'm getting ready to post a mini documentary that, God willing, will become a full-fledged series in the future. So I'm asking people for money. You know what I'm saying? I'm taking calls from famous niggas with money and connected to chats and stuff like that. You're right. So it's like, all right, you know, if they want to give me a check to make this dream project, and then I make a video saying Tyler Perry's awful and here's why. Tyler Perry's a petty motherfucker. This is a well-documented thing. And I live in Atlanta. I've seen
you're
it up close.
Scared of Tyler Perry.
That is the name of the video as it stands right now. I'm scared of Tyler Perry.
Shut up. The video is called I'm Scared of Tyler Perry.
In my head right now, that is what it's called. I am afraid of Tyler Perry.
You want to talk about him.
Oh, I lost you, Torrey.
I think you tapped your mic.
Because you want to talk about him, but you're scared because of your business model.
So it's a couple of things. And here's where we get to the I think the good meat. I want to talk about Tyler Perry for a couple of reasons. One, because I have significant issues with his art, right? His art, I have significant issues with the quality of his art, but also what his art means and does to Black people, to Black women, to Black men, to queer Black people. Like his art does a lot of really bad stuff, aside from just not being very good. Then I want to talk about also how I'm inspired by Tyler Perry, and I see not just myself, but I think any Black creative that is not within the system probably is inspired by Tyler Perry on some level, because you're like, yo, got it out the mud. Like it should have that definition in Urban Dictionary should have his face next to it.
Facts.
And then also Tyler Perry is so emblematic of Black capitalism and its limitations and its folly. And so my fear is how he's all those things at once. And what does that actually mean? Like, how do I even explain that one of the most inspirational figures of like of Black self-determination is also putting out regressive art, not doing a ton to, you know, being very petty in the industry from what I know, not interested insider, but I think we all know some stories. You know, like, but also like doing it, like answering only to himself. Like there's such a complex conversation. So the fear is not just Tyler Perry. The fear is also FD Signifire and media as a whole.
I feel like, go ahead. I think we're done.
Well, no, that's pretty much it.
I feel like, I mean, I've never felt inspired by Tyler, and I felt like the conversation was Spike versus Tyler and sort of the competing artist modes of, do I pursue mastery of craft, which was just Spike trying to become a real filmmaker, becoming a real filmmaker's filmmaker, versus somebody who was performing for a very specific audience and mastering business. As far as marketing and the business of film, Tyler is a master. I don't think he's even passably good at any other aspect of filmmaking, but because he's so good at the marketing, then it all works. Let me tell you a brief. Go ahead. I want to tell you a brief story around Tyler. Hopefully, you'll tell us a story, because I love your teasing us with the petty industry shit. Many years ago, I was on CNN. This was around For Colored Girls, which I particularly hated because it was such an important piece of Black art growing up, and he completely destroyed it with his film. And I was on CNN with this clown professor, and I described his movies as cinematic malt liquor. And the professor this Black professor I was on with, like, freaked out and was like, you know, well, at least he hires a lot of Black people. And I'm like, so do drug dealers. That doesn't absolve them from what they're doing. So like this whole, so the next day I'm flying to San Francisco for this book tour. And I'm going through TSA, and it's a 404 number. And I'm thinking it's CNN, like, oh, we want you to come back. and somebody's like, "Hi, this is Tyler Perry," and I'm like, "Who the fuck is pranking me?" And they sound really good, and I might have hung up on them, and they called back, and they were like, "This is really Tyler Perry," and there was something in the voice that like broke that I was like, okay, this is the most incredible like faking of Tyler Perry's voice like ever to get it like that. So it must be. And we talk more, and I'm like, is this really Tyler Perry? So we had this whole argument in the airport on the phone where I'm basically like, step your game up. And he's like, Black people love me. They come to me crying and say, I was going to kill myself and I watched your movie. I was eating myself to death and I watched your movie. I was in a bad marriage and I watched your movie. So I don't care. Any critic, any high art, that doesn't matter to me because I get it from them. And like, that's what he's all about. And he doesn't care what an aesthete like me thinks about his movies.
Yeah. And that's
makes sense.
That's also another, that's also another argument that's going to be in there is that who am I to tell my aunts who've loved his movies since they began, who relate to some of the material and like the themes that he tends to have in his movies, they relate to them heavily. Who am I to tell them that that's intrinsically bad? You know, what does it say about me and like the state of us as a people that that's even a conversation? But
it is bad. It is bad filmmaking. It is.
It's not about bad filmmaking per se. It's like you said, it's the messaging, and I think that you're saying, "Who am I to say that it's bad?" It's like you are like kind of the perfect person to say that it's bad, right? That's like what you do, and what I'm saying that on that is that some of the things that they are relating to are things that are baked into the community from an oppressive society and remnants of things that shouldn't really be there. So, and then he's just using that as like, a way to grab all the people who are still stuck in part of that mind state.
To tell my Tyler story, I'm in Atlanta, and I've known people that have worked for Cartoon Network, and between the Boondocks, the Boondocks show, and it was another. He got that show pulled, but it was like it was something else. Was it Black Dynamite? I can't remember what other thing came up. He got an episode. There was an episode pulled from TV.
There was an episode. The Atlanta episode about Tyler Perry. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. That episode, where they basically the Boondocks did that episode way before, and he got that completely canned. So that's what he's referring to, and that's kind of crazy. The amount of power, the amount of will to get that done too, and how he's like, I could see you tainting my image within the Black community that pays all my bills. That's what that really is. But go ahead, finish.
And so there's a ruthlessness, right? And because the other thing is, to me, the biggest thing that's unassailable is that when people say, "Oh, Tyler Perry hires people," this is coming back to our criticism of Jay-Z. The whole point of us getting behind Black faces in high places is the belief that you're going to put the effort to reach back and pull people up to where you are. And Tyler's never done that. He's only employed people. He's only hired people to work for him. Tyler got there's a multi 1,000-acre studio that is 5 miles from where I used to live, where he owns soundstage. He has everything. We could be having a Harlem Renaissance of media in Atlanta right now if the billionaire Tyler Perry hired him some people to make media. And we could be getting name your favorite Black movie. We can getting one of them a year in every genre on his studio through his distribution with his production. But he only produces his own movies there, or he rents it out to Marvel.
He rents it out to big studios.
Yeah, big studios, right. He doesn't hire writers. He doesn't hire producers. He doesn't hire directors. He does pretty much everything. And there's the same logic that got him out the mud, right, is also baked into his unwillingness to relinquish the tools that if the logic is black faces in high places is what's going to bring us through. If we want Black Wall Street and, buy black, et cetera, et cetera. The logic there is that by imbuing these selected few, these talented 10th with resources and money and power, that they're going to do for the community what the community is doing for them. And nobody is doing for, like, the community is doing for Tyler like they've never done for anyone else. And unlike Issa Rae, Ryan Coogler, you know what I'm saying, all these other black media figures that have gotten into producer spots that are putting people in positions, Tyler's never done that, and it's like, and he's the one with the most power to do it. So it becomes this grand discussion, this complex discussion, because as far left as I've grown to be in the last 8 years or so, since, well, not almost 10 years now, damn, getting old. Since, ending Obama, I think a lot of people, a lot of black folks, a lot of black millennials, the end of Obama's presidency was like a moment of self-reflection as we tried to figure out what just happened. And so I progressed much further left since then, but I also am tied to that person that believed in the Americana myth up until that point. And we still see that mythology operating with the Tyler Perrys and the Jay-Z's and the Killer Mikes and all these other people. And there's an intrinsic desire to be like, yeah, that's good, right? Isn't that what we were taught? We all remember the Talented 10th speech from Du Bois, but nobody talks about the fact that Du Bois later in his life was like, yo, that Talented 10th speech was some bullshit. My bad, y'all. I don't fuck with that no more. We need the guiding 100. Nobody knows that part of Du Bois' story because it's not useful for empire, for black empire, investment in empire. And this whole conversation, for me, at least what my goal is how are we reintroducing this hidden and lost history back to the black political consciousness to make use of it the way we did 60 years ago,
Are you talking about Tyler's colorism issues?
Oh yeah, we got to get into all the colorism, the slick homophobia, the misogyny, and the the misandry, like, because this colorism is always a black man. Yeah, and the way Tyler depicts black men was probably my first giveaway. Like I've never, what was it? I think it was I Can Do Bad All By Myself. When it was the first time the light skinned dude was the bad guy, but then the good guy was Puerto Rican. So it was like, okay, it's cool. we haven't broken the streak. The good guy's a Puerto Rican, so he's not even black at all, y'all. It's better. So yeah, there's so much good stuff there.
Have you watched every Tyler Perry film at this point?
Not yet. I started watching Tyler Perry movies like backlog at the top of the year. So, but I stopped.
How does that feel? Like, how does your brain feel?
Oh, like a fucking waking nightmare.
It's like, I could
not your brain on Tyler Perry.
Yo, like all of his movies? Like, he has a lot.
I'm probably going to release 2 videos. One video is going to be this conversation, like what I'm kind of working out with you all right now. Because again, all of this is my outline of the thesis of the video. So like, don't hold me to nothing until it comes out on my channel in 3-4 months. But another video probably on my side channel is going to be just, I watched every Tyler Perry movie and I'm ranking them on a tier list. And so far,
what's your number one?
What's
your number one?
Hey, Why Did I Get Married wasn't bad.
So far, Why Did I Get Married is up there. It's hard for me to even like now, like I haven't touched it in a minute. Why Did I Get Married is up there in terms of its genuine quality. The best filmed movie is probably what he just did on Netflix with the black women at war. That's like the movie that looks more like a real movie.
A real movie.
It's bad. It's still bad, Torrey. I know. It's still bad. I'm just saying,
like, a movie that looks like a real movie is so fun. This is the one movie that looks like a real movie.
It looks like because most of his movies look like plays.
They look like Tyler Perry movies.
He films them like plays.
Yes.
Yes. It's like that movie looks like a real movie. For Color Girls looks like a real movie. Daddy's Little Girls is up there for me, but I haven't watched it since I watched it in theaters. So like I may come back to it and be like, oh, this is just as bad as everything else. So like, and at the bottom is I Can Do Better By Myself, every Meet the Browns, every Meet a Thing movie. I just watched Madea Goes to Jail. There's this sequence in Madea Goes to Jail that is so genius that I don't think Tyler Perry wrote it. It is the funniest I've laughed at anything he's done. It is so good. I'm getting goosebumps because it's such absurd hilarity. I'm like, where is this part of your filmmaking? Because like everything's black and white, and Medea's back in time, and she's going to meet Rosa Parks to fight her because Rosa Parks slept with her boyfriend. And it's like, and it's it's so fucking funny. I'm like, Tyler, can you do this? Is this really part of your repertoire?
You know, I feel pandered
what
to
movie's that?
watching those movies.
Medea goes to jail. Go ahead.
You know what I feel like, you know how Soul Plane had a vision of, if we ran the shit, it would be janky. And that's kind of like what we get so often from Tyler, although it's a souped up non-jankiness, but it's janky, but not, but like glossy. You know, in the, I don't know if you have seen this, FD, but in the 70s in particular, as Black people, and I only say this because I think Tyler is taking some of his mindset from this era. As Black people start to move into the middle class more and more, there's a rise in Black doctors and Black lawyers and Black professionals like that. And sometimes you would catch Black adults expressing an opinion which amounted to Black lawyers are lesser, Black doctors are lesser, because we didn't fully understand. We weren't used to seeing Black people in these positions. And that on a long timeline, that leads to like Soul Plane, where we're like, well, I imagine the Black airline would be janky as fuck. Yeah. And like, I feel like his whole worldview is like, I'm like, why are we always like corny and broken down in your shit? Like, what the fuck?
That's the shit that I was saying about appealing to that part of the community that has been formed and forged by oppression. It's like it's been forged by oppression, so inherently it's negative and bad. Because why do you go to a place and be like, yeah, this place doesn't run well because it's all Black people running it? Like, yeah, there's so many people of us who actually feel that way all the time.
People talk bad about this nigga has more money than God. He would have never in 1,000 years come up with like Wakanda, where like, holy shit, Black people are like on top of the world and brilliant and like everything is dope and like futuristic.
That is an interesting.
He would never do that, and he totally could, but he would always run in the opposite direction.
There's no virtuism in being a billionaire. That's just the reality of it. Whatever he's doing is, how do I make more money off of the niggas that get me money? Like, let's just be real about it. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, but Black Panther is I think it's the highest grossing Black picture ever. So like, I
think so.
No, I agree. I agree with that. But it would take someone who's not trying to feed that part of our community to want to do something like that. It would take somebody who's thinking outside.
Or just like a person with a real creative and political imagination. Not that Black Panther, especially the movie, has great politics, but like the
concept's cool.
You know,
Afrofuturism.
The concept's cool, right? And I got to roll
cool. And I bet you've spoken on this. In the two Black Panther movies, the politics are regressive, right? In the first movie, it is a Black person fighting another Black person. In the second movie, it's Black people fighting brown people. And
a single cracker died in none of them movies yet.
Right, and
y'all think about that.
Not only that, worse than that, the movie posits the only trustworthy white character is an agent of the federal government who, in the end, it proves they were right to trust him. What the fuck are you talking about? That's completely insane. There's no critique of America. There's no attack on America. They want to work with America, even though they want to do it on the low. That whole American government, that's insane. That's completely
and it's
insane.
Messed up because the Black Panther comics are much
more.
They run the gamut, but there's much more radical and explicit political messaging in the comics than we've gotten from the movies thus far. The only thing I'll give the movies is that I was happy in the second movie they retconned the end of the first movie, which is my biggest complaint, because the end of the first movie they copy the Patrice Lumumba speech, which is gross. And then he says to the white the Western Empire, hey, you can have vibranium. It's cool. Have this most important, powerful thing in the world that we control and have done nothing with. You can have it now. So let's see what you guys do with it. And at the beginning of the second one, Angela Davis was like, we ain't giving y'all shit. We don't trust y'all. I don't know what y'all doing with it. Y'all been trying to steal it.
Especially you French niggas. She looked at the French. She was like, especially y'all French niggas.
Right. We know how y'all get down.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what happens in the third one and see if Coogler, because I see what Coogler has tried to do, but and again,
let's talk about the reality that the military funds and approves, like the government funds and approves these films, these major films, and that shit can't happen. So let's just make sure we understand that cannot happen.
I mean, we're never.
America can't look bad. America can't look bad.
We're not going to see Civil War Wakanda versus America, but we know if Wakanda existed, they would understand our biggest problem is America, and either we need to fight them or we need to be walled off from them and not interact with them at all. But they wouldn't be like, hey,
which was their initial
government official, come hang out with us.
Right. But that's kind of, and that brings us full circle to the whole point, which is don't employ the aesthetics and imagery and histories of people who would have just said, fight America, and put it on top of Wakanda forever. You know what I'm saying? Here, CIA, man, you can have the vibranium. Because what people often don't, and so this time this wasn't as explicit, but people that noticed it. Again, shout out to some of my mentors that helped put me on game. The speech at the end of Black Panther is like a visual recreation of Patrice Lumumba's speech to the world nations in 1960 something. I think like 65. That was after the Democratic Republic of Congo led a bloodless coup to get their freedom from Belgium, right? And that speech was infamous because he got up there and said, y'all are racist. We don't fuck with y'all no more. Y'all can't have no more of y'all shit until y'all get y'all act together. Y'all can't have no more of our shit until y'all get y'all acts together, and until further, and we may or may not be fucking with Russia because we low-key think that the socialist communist frame of thinking is where we gonna roll with, because y'all capitalist motherfuckers been trying to kill and rape us from day one. And then they murdered him like a month later or however long later, right? And so that same image is T'Challa at the end of Black Panther. And so like, that's just insidious. It's just insidious, just the way it's insidious to have Snoop Dogg and all our like rap legends wearing MAGA hats, and like the psychological warfare that is for Black people to see people that we revered and propped up as heroes, like put on that hat and sell out to this fascist regime. Is also very insidious to give us beautiful, engaging, inspiring art and have it low-key undermine the radical politics that it tries to present to us in this different way. You know, that is like all these arguments, that is the core of it. And that is where people are picking sides. And my thing is maybe we expand for a continuum as opposed to a binary, if that makes sense.
So let me throw out this example that I find very fascinating in this conversation of art and anti-capitalism politics. Sorry to bother you. Boots Riley, perhaps the most anti-capitalist film that I've ever seen, certainly in the modern era, a searing critique of capitalism in multiple forms. It is also a capitalist entity. It is a product that is seeking to make money. It cost millions and billions of dollars to make it, and I'm sure they made millions of dollars from it.
Right.
So do you have what do you think about the movie, and does it change by it being what it is talking about?
So the movie is not a capitalist entity. The movie is a product. And the people that worked on it were products. The capitalist entity at best is, what is that? What was that, on Amazon? No, that came out in theaters actually.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry to bother you was a major.
It's a theatrical release. I'm thinking about
when I say it's a capital entity, I mean
Clone Tyrone.
Yeah.
No. I'm a Virgo was Boots Riley. Clone Tyrone it came out at the same time. They were both these Afro surrealist things. So that's an important question that I don't always have the perfect answer to, but the simple fact is, like, operating and surviving within a capitalist system is not an endorsement of it. Being good at surviving in a capitalist system is not an endorsement of it. Because to be a capitalist, you have to own capital. You have to own and control the means of production. So like I make a thing, I make videos, I put them into the market, and I make money off of people watching them. And I can't completely disabuse myself from harm that's done by being in the system, but I also can't not be in the system or I and my children starve. And
well,
so
aren't you complicit?
We're all complicit.
Why isn't
that's kind of my point.
Why doesn't Kendrick and Beyonce get that?
But well, they do for me to an extent, but it starts being concerning when you employ the point is Kendrick and Beyonce can make it, Kendrick's GNX and most of his albums get no shade, but the extra check of the NFL, the global attention that gets you, which raises all his album sales for the next we're a month past it now. Knowing that the NFL is a part of the military-industrial complex, knowing all the billionaires involved with that production, that is a different level of critique than your personal art that you put into the system. And so all of it is still complicit. And there should, I feel that everybody should get some level of leeway and grace for how we decide to survive capitalism. But the criticism becomes, okay, I'm going to survive capitalism by selling radical imagery back to people that desire that radical imagery. And that's when the critique has to elevate to point out, hey, I know you like this artist, I know you like this art, and I know you like this radical imagery, but let me explain to you how these three things really can't coexist as the way they're being presented to you. And at the end of the day, that's our job to do. The cultural critics, the connoisseurs, the people that don't necessarily create the art, but explain the art to the masses. And we need to step up our game in doing that. Does that kind of make sense? So like, I don't say this, like the same way that Kendrick Lamar says, I'm not your savior. I am not a revolutionary. I make art that speaks to a revolutionary ethos. I could be making Mr. Beast stuff at this point. I could be making all hip hop commentary videos with no sense of political engagement. I have a Lupe Fiasco video coming up. I can leave out Lupe's moment at Obama's inauguration or whatever show that was, and it wouldn't be a big deal at all to most of the people watching, or I can make that an entire chapter of the video. So you do what you can where you can. And there will be people to my left that will say, FD, that wasn't good enough. You should have did X. And I'll just hold that criticism and see if I can make it better the next time. But what I'm not going to do is act like I'm the most radical creator in the world and then say this video is sponsored by Skillshare. You feel me? That's where it gets weird.
But to a degree, it is though. Your video is sponsored by Skillshare.
All of us are sponsored. Like this is going through a Google platform. That's why I Google platform earlier. Yeah.
So I agree with that. But you're just saying that I want to know where a capitalist starts in your perspective. That's kind of what I'm wondering. Just thought experiment wise.
So
it's like
capitalism, right? So people think that being a leftist is automatically one, avowed poverty, or that there's no existence of money, there's no existence of inequality, or of people that make more for what they do and people that don't make as much. And that's not the situation. Capitalism is how the means of production are controlled and manipulated by a select few to make sure they maintain that capital and that power, and that those who are outside of that circle can never get in that circle. That's what, again, Jay-Z was complaining about, because Jay-Z's gotten to a spot to truly be a capitalist. And he, on that end, feels the push from the traditional power, so to speak, of capitalism to keep him out of that food chain. And so when he was like, capitalist's new N-word, he was speaking to that critique that he had of a system that he's trying to get into. But the reality is, Jay-Z is a billionaire that has exploited his connection to hip hop to not directly harm Black people, but to contribute to a system at a mass scale that harms Black people. A perfect example of this is the Barclays Center when he moved the Nets to BK, right? So that was the biggest gentrifying agent of Brooklyn to ever hit. And they sold that off the back of Jay-Z saying Jay-Z owns the Nets. Jay-Z owned 0.01% of the Nets.
Less than
that. You know what I'm saying? And his reaction after the fact was not to build institutions of health and education and safety in Brooklyn, but to give them a Bitcoin class. You know what I'm saying? So like when we're talking about, and then to still be in a position to protect himself from that criticism, because he don't have to do no interviews. He only have to drop an album. You know what I'm saying? And if I ever want to make my documentary and Jay-Z sees this interview, he's like, you know what? Not that nigga. Like that can happen. So when we're talking about capitalism, we're talking about relationships of power to resources and people, and how those with power control resources to harm people. We're not talking about hustling your money, like building something cool or great that people want to buy, being talented enough that people want to pay for your presence and your art. We're not talking about folks that make good money. If you're a doctor and you make, like, the healthcare industry is a problem, and you can find ways to subvert that industry within your medical practice. But like anybody that's jawing at a well-paid doctor or an accountant, you know what I'm saying, or people within like normie workspaces saying y'all are capitalists, ironically are serving capitalism. Because, and this is the one thing, and I do have to get out of here, one of the greatest tricks of the capitalist system is that, and this is one of the things why I want to talk about Beyonce specifically, is that it's much easier to critique Beyonce and individuals at our level than it is to actually attack the system. And the system will have us attacking each other, saying, you're not a good leftist, you're not a good socialist, you're not a good liberal, you're not a good feminist, right?
And we're wasting your time saying Beyonce's not doing enough, but you're not actually critiquing the system. You're just saying Beyonce or Kendrick is not doing enough.
So we've gone full circle, and it seems like, so Kendrick's supposed to do his art, everyone's supposed to do his art, and the reality is, the system of money that we use in the system of free trade is the fucking problem. And you are not even control of this. So stop blaming this guy who makes this much more money than you. Then this guy makes this much more than money than you. It's about the system.
I won't say stop blaming. I think I would say is elevate your critique so that it becomes less about that individual and how that individual's role within the system works. And that's where you're really educating people on useful resistance. So that they don't become Kendrick Lamar or Beyonce anti-fans. They understand how Kendrick Lamar and Beyonce fit into the system. And how they can subvert the system, how they can learn more to subvert the system,
and how they do
versus
as well,
just being fans. Or how they could do
it. There's a super chat from Blind Shepherd that's interesting, fits into this conversation. The role of an artist is to produce content that can be used to amplify a movement, not to lead it themselves. Art is useless if it doesn't utilize capitalism to gain access to the masses. That's well said.
That's a weird.
Is Nina Simone look useless? You feel me? Like Nina Simone was never on James Brown's level, but and Black and Proud was like a big deal. Shout out to, I want to make sure I give credit to this take. This came from Ismatu Gwendolyn on Instagram. I'm gonna butcher her take. Please just go check out her Instagram and her TikTok. But she points out that Nina Simone sacrificed her career at scale to be more radical artist than others did at the time. And all of them have value, but I don't think we should conflate everything. We should recognize who really put like skin in the game and sacrifice. Again, also No Name. No Name wasn't always a socialist. No Name. The cool story of No Name is that she got dragged for a pro-capitalist take on Twitter, and they dragged her into reading. And when she started reading, she was like, "Oh shit, I'm actually a whole socialist now," and the rest is history. But could No Name be even just Doechii, let alone like Meg or Cardi or what's it called? Could she be Doechii if she was less of a socialist? Maybe, and so we have to also honor that sacrifice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but at the same time, their art, Nina Simone's and people's art, gets to the masses. We still know about them because of some sort of capitalist intervention, intervention.
Yeah.
So
capitalism. Whoa. Let me stop. I gotta stop you there. Capitalism is not responsible for the systems. Capitalism is not people. That's a falsehood that people put out there. Capitalism is not responsible for innovation and creation. At most, it funds the money. It provides money for people to sustain themselves, so that they can do the creation. And the only reason it does that is because it's made it so nobody else can. Right. So when people talk about like innovation and breakthroughs in sciences and arts, whatever, and they say, well, you can only do that because we're in the capitalist system. That's just not true. There was no.
That wasn't my. Just to clarify, that wasn't my point.
Yeah.
I was more so piggybacking off of his statement saying that art needed capitalism to gain access to the masses, and then your rebuttal was or it has no value or is useless. You said, was Nina Simone useless? I'm saying if no one heard anything Nina Simone did, you could say it's useless. I want to say it's useless as in like the art is still good, but I wouldn't know about it. Right. No one would know about it if it didn't go through one of these systems. Right. That's what I was saying.
But even at scale, Nina was kept alive by the people, right? Nina doesn't have the same like scope of celebrity that her contemporaries have in wide pop culture, partially because of her politics. So I just don't want us to give. We have a habit because we've been often trained, and I do this still myself, to give capitalism credit where it's not due. Well, that's literally due to community and culture and people. The people recognize what Nina did and sacrificed for the people, for the culture, and they keep her name. I heard Nina Simone more in hip hop verses than I've heard Nina Simone songs until I was in my 20s. You know,
I agree with that.
From Mos Def and
Nina Simone samples put me onto Nina Simone. Like the Nina Simone sample put me onto Nina Simone.
There was a renaissance that brought her back, but she was underappreciated and under-discussed and underplayed for a long time. And the documentary about her health was a big thing that brought her back to prominence. FD is always amazing and enlightening and empowering to have you. We can do this with you all day long.
Yeah, easily.
I know you got kids, you got to go dad it up, but
it's actually daytime. It's daytime before the kids come. I may or may not be getting a dirty look when I come out my dungeon because I'm a good 20 minutes over time. But yeah, we was cooking, and it was good food, and I hope people appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming through. Don't get in trouble. Go get some roses and go upstairs and go.
Peace and blessings, y'all.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
We're out.
Oh, real quick, couple quick shout outs. Shout out again to Eastman and Irby, who like a lot of the stuff you heard from me today is only possible because of conversations I just had with them like in the last week. Shout out to Nicholas Nameless, who I name dropped. Shout out to BP, who has a good take on Overthrow Media. Just released a video on Kendrick's concert, on Kendrick's performance that has a whole different take that we didn't even get into here that I want to put out there. And then just shout out to all my folks. Y'all know who y'all are.
In a nutshell,
that it was a conversation between. It was really a conversation between the Black bourgeoisie and Black underclass. Because Kendrick is uniquely positioned. Because like we had a conversation in the video, and I said to him, "Is Kendrick the first like truly hood rap megastar? Because most rap megastars, if we keep it real, aren't from the gutter like Kendrick was. It's DMX, and that's all I can think of. That's like truly
Jay-Z,
from the who's
Jay-Z and
Nas. Is Jay-Z not a megastar?
Was Nas from the gutter like Kendrick and
his father was a musician.
Yes, I'm saying like
they and them had nothing. Nas and them had nothing. I don't think 3K came from much.
Yeah, 3 Stacks.
I don't know.
There was College Park is not like so. Again, this is I want y'all to go to his videos to get the full take. But we're speaking specifically about like the moment of the Black megastar in an era where most of the rap megastars are not really like it's Drake, it's Cole, it's Tyler. These are not from the slums artists. They're great. They're still Black. They're dope, but they can't speak as explicitly to that out the mud experience. But Kendrick literally got out the mud and became a high arts darling as well. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So there's a conversation of like, okay, how do you go from the mud to high art and back again? Go watch this video. Go watch their video for it.
No,
I see how
I
you're
would
saying that Kendrick is unique in that way, where it's like the high art aspect. I don't think many had that, but it's also primed. Hip hop has been primed to be able to accept him as high art, whereas Nas's Illmatic is high art. It just wasn't accepted within society as such.
You're doing a better job of kind of explaining. Is that there's a conversation that happens when you go from being you know, when you get adopted into high art spaces and that wasn't your origin point.
Yeah,
that is a form of exploitation. Almost.
Yeah, the motherfucker has a Pulitzer.
Chad is going nuts on this. I mean, Biggie was from the hood.
I'm sorry. So I take that part back. I take that part back.
Yeah, it wasn't
wrong.
from the hood. I was talking about how
I'm talking about in a modern sense
by mainstream media is different than any rapper ever before who is from the hood. Like it would take. Yeah, I agree with that statement. Now that I see it,
we're gonna let you go because I hear your wife calling. Yeah. But what's the name of the brother you just referenced? I want to have him on the show.
Overthrow Media. Their name is BP. I'll let them know that you're trying to get them on there. Just be ready, BP. Like if y'all gonna if you have to brace yourself for me, that's one of my homies that's to the left of me. That you know, BP's an anarchist.
Oh, we want that.
Anarchist. BP's coming out.
He's an anarchist.
Done time inside. BP. I'm pretty sure BP's an anarchist. I'm not sure. I don't want to misrepresent them. So I will make sure I put that contact out there. Holler me on Instagram and I'll put.
All right, bet.
All right, no doubt.
Peace and
all right,
y'all.
we out. Peace.
All right, that's been to the freaking Rap Latte. Do you want to read some of the super chats?